Jack Snack. We are rewarded only to the extent by which we add value to those clients we are privileged to serve. Chapter 7. Trusting. Have you ever teamed up with someone else to accomplish a project? Initially, you meet to discuss the project and map out your tasks and deadlines. Day by day, you work together to complete the project, communicating sometimes 5 or 6 times a day. Did you ever change the subject from work to a topic more personal and share some aspect of yourself? For instance, confiding that you had tried to complete this sort of project in the past alone and found that you couldn't do it as effectively? Or perhaps sharing that you just found out that your mother has a chronic disease and you're scared. This kind of sharing infers, I trust you as a person. It says, I see you as a fellow human being, vulnerabilities and all. There really is no other way to establish lasting relationships with people except by trusting them. Sometimes trust takes the form of letting them make their own mistakes and trusting that they can take responsibility for whatever happens. When you find yourself struggling to stay in control, either of your feelings or of someone else's, stop and reflect. You may be damaging an important relationship. Going within. Talking to you now. I have to confess something to you. Showing vulnerability is one of my numerous character flaws. I'm taking vulnerability lessons all the time, and I will continue until the day that I'm pushing up daisies. It has always been difficult for me to let down my guard and trust someone enough to share my real feelings with them. This is not a good thing, since relationships are all about trust and vulnerability. I now realize that I can't create the ever-increasing, deeply satisfying life that I want without learning to trust others and trust in them more. Every story that I share with you in this book is me saying to you, I trust you. Here is how I show my confidence. Few will trust you if you don't trust them. Yes, you may still sell them something once or twice, but that relationship will not continue to grow and expand. That person will not scatter goodwill about you in that network, and your life will simply be a rubber band, expanding briefly, then collapsing to its former size. If I can learn to open my heart and mind to others despite years of resistance and control walls, you can too. Reaching out, taking more than money. When my oldest son, Nick, was 17, I wanted to teach him finance and judicious spending. I opened a bank account for him with both of our names on the signature card. Nick got a job and started making money each week, some of which he deposited into the account. After about 6 months, I realized that I was still footing the bill for Nick's cell phone, car insurance, and his dirt bike. He had agreed to contribute a certain amount of money for these expenses. I reminded him of this, but he did not pay me. I grew more and more frustrated and decided that I would take matters into my own hands. I went to the bank and took all of the money out myself, $1,000, without telling Nick. When Nick went to the bank the next time, he was devastated to discover that I had taken out all his money. The only thing that he could say when we talked about it was, all I know is that I had $1,000 and now I don't have anything. After working to instill trust in my son, I had single-handedly damaged it by not trusting in Nick to be accountable. He was either going to pay me and pay me in a timely manner, or he was not going to pay me. Whatever Nick chose to do would be his decision. I took the opportunity for him to be held accountable away from him. I made a mistake. Nick never put another dollar in that account. The first thing that I did was go to Nick and say, I'm sorry that I went into your account and took the money without your knowledge. That was wrong of me and I feel bad. I'm never to do that again. The second thing that I did was go down to the bank with Nick after he turned 18 and helped him open an account in his name only. Every parent makes mistakes. I can't beat myself up about this one. I can learn from it, however, and hopefully by sharing my mistake with you, you can learn from it also. The next step. It's time to take inventory. Do you have a current or past relationship that is suffering or has ended because you could not admit that you were wrong? Do you have a churning in your gut when you think of certain people? Why is that? It took me a very long time to realize this important truth. Being vulnerable or admitting you're wrong is about trust. It's about trusting the other person to respond appropriately, to listen, and to forgive you. Trust makes it a little easier to acknowledge that you messed up, and trust makes it a lot easier to establish lasting relationships. What about the people closest to you? How often have to come to them and said, I'm wrong, or I don't know what to do? These are uncomfortable conversations to have. Make an appointment to sit down with a colleague, friend, or family member and acknowledge to them that you made a mistake in some way, that you are sorry, and that you want to know how to make it right. When you have completed this conversation, send me an email at jack@lifesasalescall.com and tell me how it went. I want to learn from you. Building blocks of successful sales. Deep down, whether we admit it or not, many of us feel that the second part of the equation in relationship sales is not an honest part of the relationship. What I mean is that when you have engaged with another person, opened up to them and trusted them, been accountable and respectful, how are you then going to turn around and ask them for their business? Deep down, doesn't that feel a little bit disingenuous to you? I'm here to tell you that that is not true. What is true is that you are asking a question. You are asking this individual if they would like to buy your product or service based on the value of the product and their level of investment in you. You are not asking them for a favor. You are asking them if your value equation makes sense. Your friendship relationship does not depend on the sale. That depends on you and them. Ideally, you would continue to have a relationship of some kind regardless of whether or not they chose to buy from you at that moment. We'll talk about this later in this chapter. For now, I want you to focus on the discomfort that you might feel when it comes time to ask a friend for their business. Another reason you may feel uncomfortable in asking for a sale has to do with trust. When you ask someone for their business, you are making yourself vulnerable to them. Some would say that you are openly courting rejection. Keep in mind that you are not your product or service. You are you. And if they don't want to buy from you, well, they may change their mind later. In the meantime, you, as an individual, have a lot to offer anyone. Why? You have a lot to offer because you know how to create and maintain a relationship. And that is a most valuable skill. When you ask someone if they would be interested in purchasing from you, you are simply asking a question. You are inquiring as to their state of mind at that moment. Up to now, you have hopefully listened to their stalls, drilled down to their objections, and overcome them. Here are some signs that your candidate is ready to become your customer. They, 1, express a strong interest verbally in your solution. I like the way that this works. 2, step into the customer role directly. What do you see as our most profitable application? 3, provides positive, unsolicited feedback. I have really enjoyed meeting you and learning about this. 4, show positive body language, leaning forward, smiling, open arms, etc. When you identify that your friend wants to become your customer, then you are ready to ask for their business or open the sales relationship. Knowing the right way to open is an art. Like all facets of relationships and of selling, opening calls for careful listening and analysis on your part. Ask yourself, what kind of opening is best for the situation and personality type with which I am dealing? The most popular and successful way of opening is to summarize the benefits that you have just presented to the individual. For example, the site allows you access to over 60,000 potential customers. You agree that the price is a small investment for the value you can receive from being a member of this site. Can I begin the process of making you a member now? Often our potential customer is very busy and doesn't have time to talk with us. Nevertheless, they have expressed a strong interest and show other signs that they are ready to buy. If this is the case, simply be direct and ask, I know that you're busy. Can we sit down and sign a contract now? Some people are hard to read. They may not be very expressive, or they tend to be cautious. In this case, gradually or indirectly leading up to the opening may work best for you. Here is an indirect open that I used recently. How many product lines do you currently have? How many sales professionals are representing those products for you? Do you currently have a sales training program in place? Are you clear on how vital it is to have well-trained people in your sales department? Would you agree that the Next Step Solutions sales training program is ideally suited to your company's needs and delivers a great return on your investment? No matter where you are in the sales process, continually recall that this individual is looking for a value that exceeds their investment. They are not looking for a value that equals their investment. They want the value to exceed their investment. They want a deal. We've all seen salesmen on TV who simply assume that the customer is buying their product or service. I'll wrap that up for you. Or what time do you want to come by? Certainly, if you are comfortable with the individual and your sense is that they have already tacitly agreed to the purchase, and then use an assumptive opening. I would caution you against using this unless you are very secure in the customer's intention. The last thing you want to do in any relationship is to be controlling or pushy. If they don't want to buy your product, that is their choice. Be confident that they will buy next time. Similar to the assumptive opening is the alternate choice opening. Here, again, you are assuming that the customer is ready to buy. You present them with an either-or choice that signals their decision. For instance, shall I write you down for Saturday or would you prefer Monday? Would you like that shipped next day or in 3 to 4 days? In this way, you are opening the door, and instead of asking them to come in, you're asking them which chair they would like to sit in. You are sure that they want to come in. Benjamin Franklin was an astute judge of character, and he was a wily salesman himself. One opening in which you weigh the pros and cons of the decision is named after him, the Benjamin Franklin Open. In this scenario, you sit down and write or list out loud to the potential customer all of the pros. When it comes time to list the cons, stay silent and let the other person supply these. Usually at this point, they realize that they have overcome their objections and they are willing to buy. Allow me to introduce you to Puppy Dog Open. Let me digress. Say you have young kids at home. Your neighbor comes over with a puppy and says, just keep her for 30 days, and if your children don't just absolutely fall in love, do you think that he'll ever get that puppy back? I don't think so. Allow your client to try your product for a specified period of time before they buy it. This usually results in opening a sale if you have determined that the client has a real need for the product and sees it as a high value for their investment. Regardless of which open you choose, remember to persistently ask for their business. Persistence is a major part of your success. More than 50% of sales pros give up after the first no. Trust the process and trust me when I tell you that simply continuing to ask for their business up to and beyond 15 times. This is what I call the rule of 15. Research supports the premise that if you find a way to ask for one's business 15 times or more, there's an 80% chance that they'll open a relationship with you on some level. Persistence is rewarded. The odds of you opening a relationship actually increase dramatically after the third no. That's right. You have an 80% chance of opening a sale if you ask for their business 15 times or more over time, even if the sale is a small yes, relatively speaking. Even though you have completed a sale with a client, you are actually just beginning that relationship with that person. That's why I call it opening instead of closing. Think of sales as a band of gold that grows thicker and thicker. It is a circle that continues on and on, not a line with a beginning and an end. Articulate your clients' long-term concerns to them and provide them with long-term solutions. Not only are you building relationship, you are also building future sales. Life's a sales call. There is no need to separate the two as long as you are being authentic in your relationships and as long as the client feels they are getting value for their investment.